The wireless BCI, brain-computer interface. For decades, we've been promised this future straight out of science fiction, a direct link between our minds and the digital world, a brain-computer interface BCI. But that future has always felt just out of reach. Today, though, we're going to look at a breakthrough that might just change everything. And this image is what it's all about, right? A super high bandwidth connection straight into the brain with no clunky wires or bulky hardware. It's an incredible idea, but actually making this vision a safe and practical reality, that's been the massive challenge for this entire field of science. So if the idea is so compelling, why isn't this technology everywhere? What's the holdup? Well, it turns out there are some pretty fundamental problems that have kept these advanced brain interfaces locked away in research labs. And that brings us to the core of the problem. It all comes down to a series of technical bottlenecks that have made these devices risky, impractical, and just incredibly difficult to use for any real length of time. This really lays out the tough choices scientists have had to make to get that really good high-resolution brain data. They've traditionally used these bulky implants with wires that literally have to pass right through the skin. Not only does that tether you in place, but way more seriously, it creates a constant, dangerous risk of infection and damage right where the device enters the body. But what if you could just solve all those problems in one go? What if you could design a device that's tiny, completely wireless, and a whole lot safer? Well, that's exactly what a team of researchers has managed to do with a totally groundbreaking new implant. So meet the BCI, and the first thing you notice is it's not some rigid, scary-looking circuit board. It's an incredibly thin, flexible chip. This design means it can be placed right on the surface of the brain, following its natural curves without needing any penetrating electrodes. It's just a brilliant step forward. But here's what is just absolutely wild. On that tiny flexible surface, they have packed about 65,000 individual electrodes. That gives us a window into brain activity with a resolution that was basically unimaginable in a wireless device until now. And because everything is baked right into that single chip, the electrodes, the processor, the wireless transmitter, the whole shebang, the BCI, by an electronic interface system to the cortex, is over 400 times more efficient space-wise than its closest wireless competitor. In other words, it's way more powerful in a much smaller, less invasive package. And how small are we talking here? The whole thing is only 25 micrometer thick. That incredible thickness is exactly what lets it be so flexible and just gently rest on a delicate surface of the brain. And this is the real game changer. This is how they finally ditch those risky cables. The device gets all its power wirelessly from a small external device, a little relay station that you'd wear outside your head. And that same device is catching a flood of neural data from the implant at over 100 megabits per second. It is literally like having a high-speed Wi-Fi router for your brain. Okay, so the hardware is seriously impressive, but can it actually give us that clearer window into how the brain works? The researchers put the BCI through its paces with two absolutely fascinating experiments, starting with a classic BCI challenge decoding movement. Alright, so first things first, the big question for any brain-computer interface. Could this device actually read the brain's intention to move, maybe even before the movement happens? So to figure that out, they place the BCI over the motor cortex That's the part of the brain running the show when it comes to movement. As a primate performed a simple reaching task, the chip was just listening. It recorded all the neural signals. Then a machine learning model was set loose on the data to find the hidden patterns that correlated with the arm's actual speed and direction. And the result, a resounding success. The model was able to predict the risk velocity with a really high degree of accuracy. This was the proof. The bicycle could reliably read motor intent directly from the brain surface and at an incredible fine level of detail. Okay, so reading movement is one thing, that's amazing. But what about something even more complex, even more abstract, like our perception of the world? The next experiment was even more ambitious. Could the bicycle literally see what the brain sees? So this time, they placed the chip over the visual cortex. Now this diagram looks a little busy, but the core idea is actually really simple. A macaque was shown thousands of different images, and all the while the bicycle was recording the brain's unique neural response to every single one. This created a massive dataset linking specific images to specific patterns of the brain activity. The researchers then took that giant library of images and brain responses and used it to train a really sophisticated deep learning model. They gave it a cool name, the digital twin. The whole goal was to create a virtual model so accurate that it could predict exactly how each of those 65,000 channels would react to any image you could possibly show it. And this is where things get truly mind-blowing. Once that digital twin was trained, the scientists could ask it a fascinating question. What kind of image would make just a single one of these recording channels fire the most? And this grid of images you see here, that's the answer. They are not photos. They are maximally exciting images generated by the AI to be the absolute perfect stimulus for specific points on the visual cortex. This slide tells such a cool story about how we see. For the channels in the V1 area, the very first stage of visual processing, the AI generated simple things like lines and textures, which you can see on the left. But for channels in the higher level areas like V2 and V4, the AI came up with more complex shapes, curves, and colorful patterns you see on the right. It is literally like seeing the brain's visual alphabet for the very first time. So we have a chip that can decode movement and can visualize the building blocks of sight. Let's just zoom out for a second and talk about why this is such a huge deal for the future. The bicycle really does represent a monumental leap. The surgery is less invasive than technologies that use penetrating electrodes, and it's also reversible. In the study, researchers could actually replace a chip in under 10 minutes. That opens the doors to future upgrades, and most importantly, it paves the way for real clinical applications, restoring function for people with paralysis, with speech disorders, or even with blindness. For centuries, we've been trying to understand this three-part universe inside our skulls. This technology doesn't just give us a better tool, it gives us a fundamentally new kind of window. And the question now is, as we begin to peer through it with this newfound clarity, what are the secrets of the mind will we finally be able to see?